Hey guys, this is Courtney from Will's Bloom, and today we are talking about the full moon lunar eclipse happening on April 15th at 25 degrees of Scorpio. I have the chart up here for us, and let me just say I'm not looking forward to this eclipse. I am already feeling some of the negative effects of it, and I think it's going to be a really important one, a really big one, and unfortunately an uncomfortable one. So if you notice my energy is down, it's because I am feeling it. So, this last eclipse, I really thought it would be super beautiful and beneficial for me personally. But really, I think the Uranus aspect brought up so much changeability that it really kind of threw me for a loop. And, ultimately, I think it can lead to liberation and really positive experiences. But initially, it's just a lot more uncomfortable than I anticipated. And I think that I was thinking it would be really beautiful and positive. And for many people, it was. And then for some other people, it's been really helping us see where things are out of alignment in our life. And I think that this eclipse now, just, days later, is finally having us make decisions about the things that are not in alignment and to make different behavioral choices, because this eclipse is at 25 degrees of Taurus, which for Sabian symbols is considered the X-ray. And I was reading about it, and I was talking about how objective an X-ray is. And this full moon is squaring Saturn, which is an extremely objective, fact-oriented planet, and it sees things at its nature, at its core, and its essence, and it doesn't lie about it. It doesn't allow things to dissuade it from the reality of the situation. And I think that Saturn is going to be very potent because it's almost an exact square. It's at 20, it's pretty much an exact square. It's at 24 degrees and change. And as I mentioned, this eclipse is at 25 degrees of Scorpio and Taurus, and 25 degrees of Scorpio is the X-ray for Sabian symbols, which is, like I was saying, seeing things clearly. You are not seeing the physical. You are not seeing the transitory experience or the fleeting emotion or the surface level of the situation. And it's going to help you pierce more to the core of the issue and be very honest with yourself about what it is that has to go, has to stop, has to end, has to change. Because Saturn is all about endings, especially with a square. And so there has to be some sort of behavior, circumstance, decision, something that you make that will eventually lead you to a much more stable foundation, because Saturn is asking us to stop behaviors that are habitual in nature, that are chronic, that are leading us on these karmic cycles again and again and again. And it's asking us to make different decisions that will lead us to a much more stable, long-term place. So it's really not about what's happening now as much as it is about what you need to happen in the future, and what decision can you make now to get you there. And that might not be the fun decision, and it's not going to be the easy decision, but it's ultimately going to be the decision that leads you to the King of Pentacles, which is true stability within oneself, lasting fulfillment, things that are really going to meet your needs as an individual, and not ignore the reality of what's happening. And we are prone to ignoring what's going on at this time. With this square with Saturn, 25 degrees, Scorpio, X-ray, all this is super clear, super bleak, super blunt. On top of that, though, we have this moon making almost an exact trine to Neptune. And this is a planet of idealization and romanticization and deception, especially personal deception. And I pulled the 7 of Cups and the 7 of Swords in reverse, which is both about deceiving oneself and kind of believing what you want to believe about a situation. And this is the other energy in this eclipse, that we could ignore Saturn's calling to us. We could choose not to see what's right in front of us. But deep down inside, we know. And I think Saturn is calling us out of the illusion into the reality of our decisions and of the long-term impact of those decisions. And ultimately, Neptune, Jupiter, Mars, these planets are all together. And I think that they're giving us this drive to succeed with this Knight of Swords. I think they're giving us at some point, I think it will ultimately, I think we will ultimately end up with a sense of discernment, because I think these planets together will give us the bravery and the courage and the desire to succeed long term that we need in order to make difficult changes in our life now. And so while these planets can also lead us to that idealization, they are also involved in what is inspiring us towards a new beginning. So we kind of have two options here. We can ignore reality and relive our karma, or we can make certain changes that will, again, allow us to feel inspired about our future and ultimately lead us towards more success and happiness. This eclipse is also sextiling Pluto. It's, again, and definitely asking us to shed layers of ourselves, to leave things in the past. And if there's anything outdated, Saturn will bring that up to the surface and show you how it's holding you back, how it's limiting you, and how you need to make changes in order to grow. At the same time, we are also having Uranus very loosely conjunct the North Node. So still a little bit of this unstable energy, a little bit of a wild card to it. And then even more concerning is we have Venus conjunct Chiron. So if any of you guys are having specific issues around relationships, money, and self-worth, self-love, this is a time in which those wounds can definitely be scratched and come to the surface. And it can feel just raw at this time. And it's a beautiful time for healing those things and addressing those things. But it's also a challenging time because it means it's being healed because you are feeling the pain from it. So I definitely think that many of us will be experiencing issues in relationships, self-worth, and money. Especially self-worth, because Venus in Aries has a lot to do with our ability to do what's best for us and love ourselves throughout that entire process. So with Chiron there, I do think that this could be a trigger point. This could be something that we both need and want and desire, and it's also challenging, and it's also has an emotional toll. And so I think that at the end of the day, this eclipse is about choosing what is best for you and your future self, and what is going to align you with your own personal value, your own personal worth. And I think if we can make these certain changes, we will be much happier in the long run. So let's go ahead and get into this for all the signs. And if you want to learn astrology or have a reading from me, I have links for that down below. Okay, so up first we have Aries Rising. So for you guys, this eclipse is taking place in your 8th house. So that means the moon in Scorpio will be in your 8th with the south node there. And you will have the sun and the north node in the 2nd house. This could be a little bit more of a challenging one, especially because you guys will also have Venus conjunct Chiron in your 1st house, in your sign, in Aries. And I think that ultimately that can really have you start questioning elements around your own personal values, around what you value in relationships. And it can maybe bring up some of the stuff to the surface where you may be asked to face some of your own inner demons. Especially I say that as I pull the devil card. Like ways in which you have been settling, especially not calling in what you deserve, either financially, in relationships, in work agreements. Like there can be so many different ways this comes up, but I really feel like you guys are going to start seeing much more clearly the ways in which you've held yourself back through any self-doubt or insecurities or uncertainty about your worth. And I think Venus being with Chiron is going to help bring about a healing process around this. But it's squaring Saturn in the 11th. So this can be especially triggering in relationships, more so friendships and like communities that you want to belong in or belong to. You might find that there has to be some kind of definitive ending in that area of your life in order for you to take back your worth and your value and honor yourself and honor your boundaries that you need. Maybe you've overextended yourself for certain people in your life and it's time to release that. With the Hangman, I feel like you guys are being very much tapped into this alternate potential of your life because your planetary ruler, Mars, your chart ruler is with Neptune, which is a planet that connects us to a vision of the future, our spiritual energies, and kind of the way that the divine can support us and create a new reality for us. And so I think that you guys are having to shift your perspective and tap into this limitless potential and see what else could be possible for you in this community or in this work or in your friendships or whatever it is that you are devaluing yourself by maintaining that situation or remaining in it and not making decisions about it. You ending something and reevaluating your life is going to plug you into these new possibilities and potentials that you might not have really considered before, or you might have discounted it. I feel like you guys have to shift your perspective in order to call in what is worthy of your time and energy. And so I feel like this eclipse is going to help burn away all of the insecurities and help you see very clearly what you've maybe settled for, especially in friendships and maybe even in work as well, since this moon is making a sextile to Pluto in the 10th. And there can even be a connection there. But ultimately, you're going to have to release some sort of sense of belonging to something in order to belong more so to yourself. And then when you do that, you can make the decisions about the actual right next place for you with this Hangman. Sorry, I'm still like getting over this cold that I had. So I feel like ultimately you are discontinuing in some sense of belonging, some community, some vision that you had for your future, some relationships that you wanted to be a part of. And you're realizing that you have to just choose you. And then from there, I think you will be plugged into this alternate vision, this alternate reality where there are actually much better options. Like I think that you literally can't see them until you make this decision and just move forward from there. So that is what I'm seeing for you, Aries Rising. I hope that resonates. If so, please let me know in the comments down below. Give me a thumbs up and I hope you have a great day. All right, Taurus Rising. So for you guys, this eclipse is happening in your 7th house of relationships. So that is where the moon and the south node are, and then the north node and the sun are in your 1st house. So this is a big potential for you guys to grow and learn significantly from this experience. And you're going to learn a lot through other people because it is taking place in your 7th house. And this is making a square to Saturn in your 10th. And anywhere where we're having Saturn is a point of leaving something behind, changing a behavior or a pattern, and stopping some kind of karmic cycle that could just continue to play out. For you, you have it in the career area. So you guys are being asked to make some different decisions in the pursuit of your goals. Whatever, it doesn't have to be a career, but any kind of really tangible goal that you have that you're working towards, it needs to be, there's something about it that has to be altered. And I think because this eclipse is happening in the 7th house, it can involve partnerships, or someone else can help you realize what it is that needs to change. But there's something involving other people in this story, in this dynamic. And the square with Saturn in the 10th is telling you that you may even need to change your relationship with authority, like with people that you're working with. Or you may have to invest more in your relationships and leave certain energies behind in the workplace. It's going to be different for everyone, but there is some sort of cycle that's playing out in your career that needs to have some evolution. And I pulled the Ace of Cups, which to me is asking you to become extremely in tune with your own emotional needs, because there may be times in which you are neglecting your emotional needs in order to pursue your career to its fullest extent. There may be times when you put your relationships on the side also for your career. So there are ways in which you can be like neglecting yourself and your emotional needs. And I think that this eclipse is really drawing your attention to that so that you can see, am I bulldozing myself at times? Am I bulldozing others at times? Am I neglecting certain parts within me that have to be acknowledged? Because I do get the feeling with these 9 of Wands that you are really tired and you maybe have been almost overworking yourself. Your Venus right now is moving with Chiron in the 12th house. So there are maybe elements of ways in which your relationships have sort of taken a back seat in your life and have been neglected to some extent, or have become less conscious, less aware, less energy being directed towards it. And so I think that could also really draw your attention to what's going on. You might be like overburdening yourself in your career, taking on a lot there, taking on a lot of responsibility, and not really managing and balancing the rest of your life appropriately at this time. And with the 9 of Wands, this is a card of exhaustion where you're just pushing and pushing to get ahead. But I think ultimately this is a time of transition with the 6 of Pentacles, or sorry, 6 of Swords. This is a time of transition where you recognize that this hard work and this current state of doing things is somewhat unsustainable, but it's going to get you to the success that you're looking for. And I got the Queen and 10 of Pentacles. So I absolutely think you can have some major career successes and some happiness and all those things, but you have to stay in tune with your emotions and keep up with the rest of your life as well, and try to maintain this balance. So I feel like this is almost like a slight course correction for you and asking you to maybe reprioritize certain things, because I think it's trying to tell you with the Queen and the 10 of Pentacles that you can have success either way, but you just don't want to sacrifice your own well-being or your relationship's well-being in the process. So just really ask yourself if you are fully satiated in meeting your emotional needs. And if you are, then just keep doing what you're doing. And if you're not, then maybe there are some adjustments that you can make in order to satisfy your career needs, your responsibilities, your goals, and your emotional needs, and your time to yourself, and your time for your partnership, or whatever that looks like for you. So that's what I'm seeing for you, Taurus Rising. If that resonates, please let me know by liking and commenting down below, and I hope you have a great day. All right, up next we have my beautiful Gemini Risings. So for you guys, this eclipse is happening in your 6th house of work and responsibilities, and that means that the moon and south node are there, and then the sun is in your 12th house. So this can be a time when the sun is in our 12th house when we are somewhat removed a little bit from our lives. Like maybe you're less visible, maybe you have less energy, maybe you've gotten sick. It's usually a time in which we have to pull back our energy, and it's usually a time in which healing is possible because of that. We're taking our external light and kind of pulling it within. And so this eclipse can stir up a lot of the internal workings in order to be healed. And the sun being in the 12th is going to bring that illumination and that clarity within yourself as you withdraw about what does need that healing, what does need that releasing. And this moon for you guys this eclipse is squaring Saturn in your 9th house. So many of you, oh, I just pulled the moon card. Yeah. So definitely a lot is being illuminated that was in the shadows for you. And squaring Saturn in the 9th, I think it's bringing clarity through almost like spiritual awareness about sort of how your life has been unfolding up until this point. Where have things contributed to your successes and your failures? Where have your beliefs maybe limited you and held you back versus lifted you up? Where have you hidden things from yourself about your reality that it's time to see? And as I mentioned, this eclipse is making a trine to Neptune in the 10th. So there is a lot that we might not want to see. And as I said that, I pulled the Nine of Cups. So this could be about romantic relationships for some of you. And for others of you, it's anything that has maybe been like lulling you in with its like dreaminess. And there may be things that you haven't wanted to believe about it or own up to it about it. And I think that this eclipse is giving that stark awareness and that clarity about those things. And with the moon specifically in the 6th house, I think that this can be a little bit more troublesome house where it can almost like affect our mental health to have an eclipse here, because we tend to feel like this can be a house of imbalances. And so when there's an imbalance in a relationship and a dynamic, you can really feel it with an eclipse in the 6th house. And so it can be somewhat destabilizing. And I think that many of you guys are at a point where you are ready for a new start with something. You guys got the 10 of Wands, which is a card of burnout and exhaustion around a certain topic. And then you got the Fool. And that's the thing with an eclipse in the 6th house, is it, as I mentioned, it can almost like spin our wheels, affect our mental health, our physical health, and it can sort of lead to that burnout type energy. And so you may have realizations about things that are wasting your energy away. And it's time to release those burdens and start fresh and light. This person has one little bag. This person is carrying all these rods on their back, and it's just not sustainable. So if there's been something unsustainable in your life, I think now is when you're going to start realizing it and really drawing your energy within to heal whatever part of you that may have attracted that, and to heal from the difficulty of stopping that pattern or stopping that cycle or ending something. So that's what I'm seeing for you, Gemini. If that resonates, let me know by liking, commenting down below, and I hope you have a great day. All right, up next I have my beautiful Cancer risings. So for you guys, this eclipse is happening in your 5th house, and that means that the sun is in Taurus in the 11th house, and the moon is in the 5th house in Scorpio. So I just pulled the 2 of Pentacles, and whenever I pull that card, I always feel that someone has a lot on their plate right now. And the moon is your chart ruler, and the moon, that kind of means that like you are going to be somewhat more affected by a lunar eclipse, more potential for you to feel a lot. And I think that you guys could be juggling a lot. You guys also have the moon squaring Saturn in the 8th house. And so this could be a time in which you are going through some really deep emotional processing. Even though generally when I think of the 5th and the 11th house axis where this eclipse is taking place as being much more social and jovial and typically lighthearted, the square with Saturn in the 8th is bringing it down significantly. It's bringing a lot of heaviness, and I'm getting the feeling of you having to make a decision about something with this placement. The 8th house can bring about this feeling of crisis and transformation and endings all on its own. And then you add Saturn to the mix, and you're adding this level of responsibility and difficult things to consider and feeling really almost kind of like depressed. So if you guys are feeling like that, if you're feeling like you have a lot on your plate, you have some big life decisions to make, and you're feeling somewhat overwhelmed, or even just low, I think that that is kind of par for the course with this eclipse. But it doesn't have to just like be like that. I feel like ultimately these decisions and everything that we are emotionally struggling with, those things are ultimately going to lead us to tremendous amounts of success and happiness. Eclipses are always things that generate enormous amounts of energy for change for the better. That doesn't always mean it's going to feel good in the moment, but I think in the long term, it can feel really good. And as I said that, I pulled a death card. So I definitely feel like you guys are going through some huge emotional metamorphosis right now, like a purging, a releasing, a deciding, an ending. And it's going to be somewhat challenging. But then once you come out on the other side, which could be 6 months from now, a couple weeks from now, once you come out on the other side, it's this feeling of lifting a huge weighted blanket off your back. And like you can finally be much more authentically yourself. And I think that's what a lot of this is. It's about being super clear about who you are, what you want, what you desire, and ending the things that are standing in the way of you achieving that. Some of these difficult decisions can involve relationships with authorities or relationships with people at work. You do have Venus conjunct Chiron in the 10th, which can indicate that struggle to have a really good rapport right now with people in the workplace, or even with your own values and goals and things like that. You might have to do some really reevaluating. Yeah, you have to reevaluate that area of your life. But ultimately, I think that you guys will come up with a more authentic vision and something to believe in that's stronger than what you currently are investing in. And I think that is what's going to feel good. So you might have to go through this metamorphosis. You might have to make some decisions and remove some responsibilities or change the way that you look at something or end something in your life. But again, I think it's ultimately going to cut off the dead weight that will then give you the space to flourish and grow. Because whenever you do that with trees, with plants, when you cut off the things that are dead, the plant then has nutrients to give to the other limbs and grow even more. And so I really think you're cutting off dead weight right now. It's not something you need to sustain. It's something old, it's something dead, it's something karmic, and it's time to allow yourself to just release it and not fight to hold on. So that is what I'm seeing for you, Cancer. I hope that resonates. If it does, let me know by liking and commenting down below, and I hope you have a great day. All right, up next we have my beautiful Leo rising. So for you guys, this eclipse is happening in your 4th house of the emotional center of our home as well. And often what brings us a sense of stability in our life. And so an eclipse here can feel maybe destabilizing within the home or the career, like some kind of core area of your life that you have felt was a foundation for you could be shaken a little bit. And especially this eclipse is squaring Saturn in your 7th house. So this can especially challenge relationships at this time and ask you to maybe make some changes to your foundation or to those relationships in order to bring about a stronger home life and a stronger foundation. I think that you guys are having to put in some emotional work, if that makes sense. I have the Page of Cups and the 8 of Pentacles. The Page of Cups is like it is our emotional nature at its earliest. So somewhat immature or like not fully developed, I want to say. And then with next to the 8 of Pentacles, this is calling you to master your craft, get really good at something. And because it's with the Page of Cups, I feel like in many ways it's becoming much more in tune with ourself emotionally, much more in tune with our needs, how we process emotions. And you might have challenges come up in your home life or your relationships or both that ask you to do that. So it could be your career as well, because the sun is in the 10th house. So the major core areas of life are all being activated right now. And there can be some relationship endings or some need to really change a karmic cycle you are experiencing in relationships. And that is ultimately going to help you process your emotions differently, put more energy, more mastery into understanding yourself. And I think that you are getting a huge gift of this, like almost like this personal awakening And with the Knight of Pentacles, again, there's a lot of energy focused on work. And this card originally came out in reverse. And this to me, I feel like is saying that there needs to be a lot of effort and work put into something that maybe there hasn't been as much put into it prior. So whether this is about literally a job or a relationship or processing emotions, there's something of that nature that is going to require consistency and dedication and thoroughness and this kind of resolve and like unrelenting focus on it that you maybe have not put in energy into before. So if it's something, if you just started a new career, for example, it's you that you're really excited and passionate about, but you're just getting started. It's a brand new thing in your life. Like you need to go into it further. You need to like really master it. If this is something around relationships, maybe you need to show up in a different way in your relationships. Or if it's for yourself emotionally, doing the internal work necessary that can be uncomfortable, that can be, you know, something that you're not necessarily like stoked on, but it's going to be very healing because this moon is trining Neptune in your 8th house. And I think it's going to give you the opportunity to release a lot of negative emotion that could be stored. I think this eclipse is like a generator of emotion right now. And it's just like able to come out of you. But with the 8 of Pentacles and 9 of Pentacles, it's asking with this square with Saturn to express this emotion in a very constructive way. Not just like allowing it to explode. How can you channel this into something useful, whether this is into your work, into your relationship, into your own emotional well-being, stabilizing oneself? Like how can you do something positive with this emotional experience that you're currently going through? And I pulled the Hierophant. Again, these are all cards to me that are saying that there's some study of oneself. The Hierophant card to me is someone getting to know themselves. And the 4th house is one of the most subconscious parts of our chart. It is the lowest part of our chart. It is the most hidden in terms of light. And so this is awakening a lot within you so that you can understand yourself on a really deep level. And again, I think this could come from challenges in relationships, endings in relationships because of the square to Saturn in the 7th house. It could be relationships within the workplace. It doesn't just have to be like a partner. It can be many different types, but there's some challenge there that's allowing you to self-reflect and self-study and channel this emotions into a really positive outlet, something constructive, maybe more towards your work, but definitely more towards self-study and self-reflection. So I think that this is the ultimate gift for you to release some negative emotions with that trine with Neptune in the 8th house and to do it in a really positive way that can then lead to more personal growth in the end. So that is what I'm seeing for you, Leo Rising. I hope it resonates and I hope it is a good one for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you enjoyed this, please like and comment down below and have a great day. All right, up next we have my fellow Virgo Risings. So this eclipse for you is happening in your 3rd house of communication and ideas. So the moon is there and then the sun is in your 9th house. So one of the first cards that came out for you was the 7 of Cups. And what's interesting is that this eclipse in particular is making almost an exact trine to Neptune in your 7th house, which can relate to not seeing things clearly, especially in relationships, like wanting to see the good in something, the silver lining, having hope and optimism and fantasy kind of all wrapped up. But there can be a self-deception that occurs with this that you have to be careful with. And with the Devil card next to the 7 of Cups, I ultimately feel like there are some mental processes that are going down that are keeping you stuck or in a thought loop or in a cycle that is containing you unnecessarily. And it could, this trine with Neptune could indicate that talking to others or other people's influence or something about relationships in your life is kind of helping keeping you stuck in this mentality, because the eclipse is in your third house of your mindset. I think it's trying to bring you utmost clarity, and it's squaring Saturn in the sixth house, which is a house that has a lot to do with our mental health and us being kind of out of balance. And so I feel like this is trying to draw your attention to the reality of some situation, but there can be other people sort of influencing you with this trine with Neptune in the seventh to idealize something that is actually keeping you stuck, or they could be ultimately they could also be like helping you through this process, because the Seven of Cups can be healing and intuitive and creative and spiritual. And so those relationships can also alternatively be what is trying to help break you free from this mindset that you're stuck in. There's some sort of negative mindset that you need to shift that's leading you to anxiety, to over worry, to overworking, imbalances in the body and mind and relationships. And so this eclipse is trying to help you break free from that. And so there may be people who are influencing you to be stuck further in that by not acknowledging reality, or the alternate positive side of the Seven of Cups could be them spiritually helping you resolve some of these matters that you've been stuck in. I also pulled the Four of Swords. So a lot of this is going to have to come from within. I think ultimately, especially with Venus conjunct Chiron in your 8th house, there is a lot of need for reflection around your values, around your relationships, around your self-worth, and where you maybe have been settling, where you maybe have been hurting others, where you maybe have been repeating childhood cycles that feel like it's kind of bringing about a crisis. There's lots of things with that you need to reflect on. And the Four of Swords is telling you to take some time alone, some time apart, without the influence of others, to truly check in with yourself. Because the Seven of Cups, as I mentioned, can be a persuading influence for the good or the bad. And ultimately, you really just need to listen to yourself with this Four of Swords, and maybe have some moments of truly just checking in without trying to take action or do something or talk about something. Even though eclipse in the third can bring about conversations, the Four of Swords, I think, is ultimately also telling you to really be discerning with what you think, and knowing that's the decision you want to make, knowing that that's how you want to think about things, and not just jumping into it. So having that pause, that self-reflection, that tuning in with yourself, and then having the conversations with people, and then deciding things, and then, so on and so forth, and then having these mental shifts. So the best way to connect to your truth is to have that time alone. So that is what I'm seeing for you, Virgo Rising. If it resonates, let me know by liking, commenting down below, and I hope you have a great day. All right. And up next, we have my beautiful Libra Risings. So for you guys, this eclipse is happening in your 2nd house of finances and self-worth. That means the sun is in the 8th house, which can be a little bit harder when we have the sun transiting through the 8th house. It can generally be a time of deep self-reflection and self-awareness. And the eclipse happening in the 2nd, I think, can draw you to your power, your worth, your confidence, and it's going to challenge anything that stands in your way with that. I pulled the Knight of Wands, which is also about being extremely decisive and confident, knowing your value, knowing your worth, and going after it boldly, courageously, excitedly, passionately. And so there may be things that you are wanting to do, that your confidence can keep yourself from being able to fully go 100% in, if that makes sense. So I think that you guys might have your sights set on something. And I think that you might need to heal some things in order to go after that with all of your might. Like, I do feel like there's some part of you that could be dimming your light in some way. And this eclipse, I think, is trying to call it out of you. You are having this eclipse square Saturn in the 5th house. And the 5th house is where we shine our light. It's where we are on our center stage and own our gifts and our talents and say, this is me. This is my creative self. This is my authentic self. And so with that square with Saturn there might be elements of this that needs to be healed, like insecurities that, again, prevent you from fully living in that light. And with the Temperance card, I feel like it's definitely calling you to let whatever this is go. And it could be other people. It could be relationships right now. You guys have Venus conjunct Chiron in your 7th house. It could be certain relationships that you have to reevaluate, friendships, people that you thought were supporters that somehow contribute to you feeling less than, or somehow contribute to you just like not fully shining your light in some way. If you find that you have certain friends or company or a partner or anything in your life that doesn't reflect all of your own worth, that doesn't encourage you to go after your dreams, that puts any inkling of self-doubt or challenges you in any kind of way that isn't good or isn't having a positive outcome, this is a time when I think you're really going to start seeing that very clearly. Venus is your planetary ruler. It's in Aries. It doesn't like to be in Aries. It's conjunct Chiron, and it doesn't like to be conjunct Chiron. And so I think it can definitely be a time of reevaluating, reprioritizing. And it definitely is going to be linked to other people in some respect. Whether it's like how you value yourself in those relationships, or whether it's if you even want those people in your life. Like it's just a time in which your compass is recalibrating to own your confidence, to own your worth. And in that process, any relationship that is sort of blocking that light from shining, or any dynamic or thing that you're investing into, or conversation you haven't had or have had, whatever it is, it's going to really be examined right now, because you're going to feel very strongly that it's holding you back, and that it's keeping you from fully growing to your highest potential. And so I think that this eclipse is a really big deal for you in order to bring about more stability in your life, more growth and more potential, more self-worth, even more money in the future. But it's like you have to fine tune and tweak any relationships or dynamics that could be not in your highest good along that process. So I hope that makes sense. I definitely think it's going to be very healing for you. The sun is in your 8th, a very transformative time. It just could be a little uncomfortable at times, but that's okay, because it's going to be good in the end. So that's what I'm seeing for you, Libra. If that resonates, let me know by liking, commenting down below, and I hope you have a great day. And up next, we have Scorpio Rising. So this eclipse is happening in your 1st house. Very big deal. And as I say that, I pulled the Emperor. So I think that this eclipse is definitely trying to coax you into your power, and it's trying to give you a sense of authority and leadership and autonomy over your life. There is no one that rules over the Emperor. He has a partner, which is the Empress, but no one rules over him. No one makes decisions for him. And this eclipse being in your 1st house is this time of releasing anything from your past, from your home, from your family, from your relationships, from your emotional patterns, any of those things that could be getting in the way of you stepping fully into this power, fully into your autonomy, fully into your strong sense of self. Because this eclipse is squaring Saturn in the 4th house. So there may be elements of relationships with this 2 of Cups that you feel like are weighing you down. And many of you, this will be maybe an emotional tendency within a relationship because it's in the 4th, or maybe a relationship with a family member, or maybe there is something imbalanced in your any kind of relationship or any kind of emotional dynamic. It could be with the self as well. So this could be a reflection of needing to find that balance within oneself and like fully love and accept oneself. But there is some there is some dynamic that I think is preventing you from fully stepping into your power, into this Emperor energy. And it's within the home, or it's within the family, or it's within a really close, intimate relationship, or with your relationship with yourself, that this is occurring with that square with Saturn. And Saturn is asking us to create some kind of change. Although I did pull the Strength card, which has a lot to do with resilience. So I get the feeling that for many of you, this change is not fast approaching necessarily. The Strength card has an energy of patience. And sometimes with our squares to Saturn, it's not about ripping off the Band-Aid. It's not about ending things right away, but it's about the process of that, because Saturn can take time. Saturn is like a fruit that has to ripen. And so there may be elements of this where you do feel really ready to step into this Emperor energy, but maybe the fruit has to ripen with this Strength card. And maybe there are elements of your own emotional nature you still have to work through, or maybe there are elements of this intimate relationship that has to play its course, or with a family member, maybe you can't just like up and leave a family member or move homes if it's a physical home. Like there's some element here I feel like that is kind of drawing you back, like it's keeping you in the situation. And that's why I have the Strength card, to represent some level of patience. It's not saying that there shouldn't be an ending or a change. It's just saying that it might not be as quick as one would want it to be. I also got the Nine of Cups and the Wheel of Fortune. So to me, one of the best cards in the deck are these two cards. This is about your fate changing, your fortune changing to be extremely positive, to get your wishes fulfilled. And so I feel like what this is saying is almost like delayed gratification. Like you're going to get what you want. Things are going to turn around in your favor. This is an eclipse in your first house. Like you got the Emperor card. You're ready to step up in your power. You're ready to make something happen in your life that you really, really want. But maybe there has to be some sense of time passing, some responsibilities taken care of, some emotional things processed, some things tied up within the home or with the family. And then once that's done, then you can move towards this beautiful wish fulfillment. And so I think it's ultimately going to be very worth it. This is a time, I think, of manifestation for you, but there has to be some kind of ending, which can be drawn out, but some kind of ending in order for that manifestation to come through. New things have to have space to enter into our life. And so there has to be some things falling away. And ultimately, I feel like you guys will have that happen. But again, with that Strength card, there is some element of patience and maturity in going about this process. So that is what I'm seeing for you, Scorpio Rising. If it resonates, let me know by liking, commenting down below. And I hope you have a beautiful day. All right. And up next, we have my beautiful Sagittarius Risings. For you guys, this eclipse is happening in your 12th house. So the moon is Scorpio in your 12th, the sun in Taurus in the 6th. And this is definitely a time in which you are likely to experience some extreme amounts of self-awareness. Whenever we have an eclipse in a house like the 4th or the 12th, even the 8th house, it stirs up a lot within us, things that we haven't been fully aware of. And it's interesting because I definitely feel like it can come from some kind of opposition. So having difficult conversations, being made aware of things about ourselves through challenging conversations or challenging realizations. And the reason I say that is because I pulled the Two of Swords and the Two of Pentacles. Both are cards of two. And what it is about two is it's a reflection of an opposite. So some of you may be facing some kind of person who's opposite you, or you may be facing some kind of situation that is reflecting something back to you, that is stirring within you something that you haven't been able to fully see before. And with Saturn in the 3rd house, it's again can be indicating where we need to have a change in the way that we think or communicate. and stopping something in that process. So if you guys have had some kind of conflict and you're having trouble making decisions and prioritizing things, it could be some change in your mental state that's related to making those decisions. For some of you, it could be having realizations about stuff about yourself and having to make decisions based off of that. It's going to vary, significantly for everyone. But I definitely think many of you will have to face some decisions and really weigh things out. I pulled the Temperance card, which I keep doing whenever I am seeing strong 12th and 8th house axis. There's a lot of healing that's happening through this self-awareness. I think it's ultimately going to lead way to an ending of an old version of yourself. With the 10 of Swords, this is about a soul ending its lifetime in this body, never to return again, never to experience those same friendships, that same career, that same body, that same experience in any way. And for that soul to transcend and move on into a new lifetime in which it will have more wisdom and experience to take with it within its soul. So I think that you guys are having some kind of definitive ending, and you might have to make a decision about that ending, or the ending can be internal and you have to face something in order to make that decision, or in order to understand this ending. But the ending is making way for lots of healing. So I think it's ending a lot. This is a 10 of Swords specifically. I think it's ending a lot of like mental stuff, the way that you see things, the way that you talk about things. There's some like definitive stopping point. Again, that's either coming through having to make a decision or having to face something about yourself, having to have some kind of conflict, having to balance these priorities and not knowing what you want to do. It's like that. One of those dynamics is going to trigger this self-awareness and this change of the way that you perceive yourself or the way that you talk. And you'll never be the same again after that point. And it's going to be extremely healing and ultimately make you feel much more confident, much lighter, much better. But it's like you have to face those things in order for that to happen. And it can be uncomfortable. I mean, I don't think that this eclipse is really that fun for any of us. But I think it's ultimately going to bring about a lot more self-confidence, a lot more authenticity, a lot more joy. But it's like we have to face certain things in order to feel that way. And so ultimately, that's what I see happening for you, Sag. If that resonates, please let me know by liking and commenting down below. And I hope you have a great day. Up next, I have my beautiful Capricorn risings. So for you guys, this eclipse is taking place in your 11th house of friendships and community, which means that the moon in Scorpio is there with the south node and the sun is opposite it in your 5th house. We are all experiencing this eclipse, making a powerful square to Saturn. For you, it's in your 2nd house. So I feel like a lot is coming down to your personal values and self-worth, and where you may have been settling in relationships, where you maybe haven't been fully like putting yourself out there in the world. There may have been ways in which you have the potential to have more connections, more friends, more visibility, more of your goals, all those things, more of the things that you kind of want. But it's almost like with the square to Saturn, there's something within yourself that needs to be released around your self-worth or your values, and your sort of perception of these things in your life in order to bring about this positive influx of those connections and friendships and the sense of belonging. Because I pulled the Wheel of Fortune card, so things are changing in your favor, but it's like you really have to, 10 of Wands, you have to release something quite heavy in order to feel this lightness and this community and this sense of belonging. It wants to come through for you. You guys also have Venus conjunct Chiron and Aries in your 4th house. So a lot of emotional processing around one's family, one's relationship with our family members, our ties to our past, how we've processed our past with our family. And I think a lot of that comes into play with this. There's some kind of karma that I think needs to burn off and burn away, where you can fully like love and accept and support yourself and have stability within yourself. And from that place, then attract your community and your sense of belonging. There's something I feel internal that is blocking that sense of belonging, that is blocking that sense of community, that is blocking from you from having the most fortuitous, advantageous relationships. And it might have to do something with self-worth and values that are specifically internal. I don't think it's like, I think it's, and I'm arguing with myself in my head. That's why I'm stuttering. I do think that most of this is just internal. Like, you may attract certain relationships based off of what's processing internally, but I feel like you have this potential just waiting for you to have this sense of belonging and connection. But with Saturn in the second, it's like, to me, it feels like there is a drying up of one's values to where you would, like, you can be more likely to settle, or this is your, like, Saturn is your planetary ruler, and in the second house it wants to search for stability. And so sometimes stability can come at the price of fulfillment. So there may be elements of relationships in your life where you've had to face this. Am I trying to seek stability and comfort and knowingness and repeating old cycles and like devaluing myself? Or am I allowing myself to work on my self-confidence issues and go, like, not settle for anything less than true satiating belonging and community and love? And I pulled the Page of Pentacles. So I feel like you're on this journey, like, you're kind of at the beginning of a long journey with this. I'm getting the sense. Saturn is approaching your third house. It is about to leave your second house. So it's not that I'm not about to, it's not going to leave it yet, but it's not that it's like a brand new journey, but I'm getting the sense that you guys have the potential to cultivate a lot of like new relationships and a new journey in that sense. And there is just something within you that I feel is maybe attracting, with this Knight of Cups, romantic partners that aren't as great as they could be, or even friendships that aren't as great as they could be. And maybe jumping into things too quickly with the Chariot card, because if you're not fully valuing yourself and you're searching for some sense of stability in other people, then it's very easy to jump into this Chariot situation of, I'm willing to settle for whatever this is to feel like I belong, to feel like I have the love and the community that I need. And that Chariot is like rushing you into the Five of Wands, which is ultimately causing internal conflict. It's ultimately uncomfortable. It's like you're rushing into a situation to feel belonging that is actually making you feel less like you belong and more in war with yourself and not stable within yourself. So ultimately what Saturn wants you to do is to find and attract the relationships that bring fulfillment long term, that bring satisfaction and sense of belonging long term, and not to rush into them, and to deal with any, like, to really face any insecurities or any areas in which you may devalue yourself or settle or rush into things to get a certain need met. So that is what Saturn is doing. It's checking you right now. It is your ruling planet. This is going to be an eclipse that you feel because of that. And you might feel that inner tension, but it's ultimately leading you to greater self-worth and happiness with friendships and community, partnerships, all those things. All right. That's what I'm seeing for you, Capricorn Rising. If that resonates, let me know by liking, commenting down below. And I hope that this is a good one for you. All right, up next I have Aquarius Rising. So for you guys, this eclipse is happening in your 10th house of career. So you guys might be experiencing some really big changes in your career life right now, but it's squaring Saturn in your first house. So I feel like wherever this square with Saturn is there needs to be some kind of chapter closing, something ending, something transforming. And with Saturn in your first, there is some sense of responsibility that you can step up in your life to a greater degree. There is some way in which you need to end certain habits within yourself that are preventing you from stepping up as a leader. And this Hermit card to me is saying that you are doing some really deep self-reflection. The sun is in your 4th house, a lot of visibility around the home life and your emotional nature and your family ties and all those things that are going to help shed some light on the ways in which you can step up more as a leader in your life and how emotionally you might be compromised or sometimes holding yourself back because of old habits, old emotions, old patterns, anything like that. Saturn in the 1st wants you to change and work on parts of yourself. There is an ending wherever Saturn is. You're not ending yourself, but you're ending some aspect of yourself. And this is ultimately going to make way for, again, this big changes in your career, a lot of potential out in the world to make things happen. But you might have to have some difficult conversations in this process. You have Venus conjunct Chiron and Aries in your 3rd house. Heavy emphasis here on maybe, relationships or money or self-worth, and these topics and conversations really coming up and kind of shaking you a little bit and helping you realize again how these can feed into you playing small in your life in many ways and not taking responsibility for things that you need to take responsibility for, not owning your ish, not letting your light shine, being afraid. There's many different ways in which this can come across. Maybe for some of you, it's not avoiding responsibility. Maybe for others of you, it's you're willing to take that responsibility for things, but there is that fear and that self-doubt creeping in. It's like it's going to look different for everyone, but this is a moment of true, deep self-reflection. And this Hermit card to me is saying you are shining a light on yourself that you haven't seen before. I got the 9 of Pentacles and the Lovers card. So again, I think a lot of the Lovers card is definitely a lot about seeing yourself clearly. She's literally sitting here looking in the mirror and she is loving on herself. And so many of you might have to work on your self-love in order to have some outward success in the world. With Saturn moving through your 1st, it does trigger a lot of our self-doubt. And I think it's ultimately calling you to work hard right now, to have a big, strong push in that area of your life to support and love yourself and really check yourself when you're wrong, give yourself support when you're right, like really owning everything, the good, the bad, everything about yourself and just loving all of it. And it's that process that's ultimately going to lead you to great financial independence and success and worldly things that you've been craving and desiring. But it's the processes that are happening within you that are preventing you from fully having those 9 of Pentacles right now, from fully having that abundance, that success, the things that you truly desire right now. So you have to love yourself. You have to see yourself clearly. You have to work on yourself. You have to release certain habits around yourself. Have these difficult conversations about your values, about your relationships, about your money. All those things have to have that reflection. And then once you do those things, you are going to be like a completely new person. And that's when you're going to be able to reach this level of success that you haven't seen before. So that's what I'm seeing for you, Aquarius Rising. If it resonates, please let me know by liking, commenting down below. And I hope you have a great day. All right. And last but certainly never least, we have my beautiful Pisces Rising. So for you guys, this eclipse is happening in your 9th house of beliefs. And it is making a square to Saturn in your 12th house. So this is definitely a time with Saturn in the 12th in which you might have some deeper self-reflection, where you might be called to have some time apart to kind of go within around things. There's too many cards here. It's too much. And you may have to release specific habits and things that are very self-sabotagey with Saturn in the 12th. We can tend to really hold ourselves back when we have Saturn moving through our 12th house. And this is kind of similar to Aquarius Rising, but there is something about yours that feels like it's less obvious. You might put the blame in other places. you might not be able to see with full clarity how you've actually been self-sabotaging or delaying, procrastinating, not taking action on things you need to take action on, not believing in yourself, undermining yourself. And those areas of your life in which you've been doing that are likely to be very under the surface, and something that this eclipse is trying to dig up within you. And it's trying to get you to stop some kind of old karmic cycle that you've been subjecting yourself to again and again and again. And with the full moon in the 9th house, I feel like it's trying to connect you to a larger purpose, a larger why, having hope and faith and belief in yourself. And as I said, that I pulled the 9 of Cups, which is the wish fulfillment card. So it is whatever it is that you are craving and your soul is desiring, you can have that thing. But there is, again, some self-sabotage that is definitely going on right now that maybe even stops you from believing that you can have it. And when you don't believe you can have it, you don't try, right? And I pulled the 7 of Swords in reverse, which is a card about self-deception. You are deceiving yourself about your reality, about what is possible. And there may be things in your life where you're just straight up lying to yourself about it, whether it's about what's possible or whether it's about if something is working for you or isn't working for you. It could be anything, but there's something that you are not allowing yourself to see clearly, that this eclipse is trying to bubble up to the surface to make you realize, to own, to accept. And then once you do that, then you can have this wish fulfillment. But you have to see yourself clearly. You have to own the things. The Hierophant card, this is the card that I pulled for self-study, self-awareness, doing the inner work, taking the time out, pulling yourself away from society, away from people, so that you can really reflect on ways in which you haven't been shining your light with the 6 of Wands, trying to be seen, allowing yourself to get the attention and love you deserve, and also the ways in which Knight of Pentacles, you've been inconsistent with your work or been self-sabotaging by not showing up to your fullest potential within your work, or possibly where you maybe even have been too rigid and consistent in what you're doing. So it can go either way. It can be, I'm too consistent, I'm not being flexible enough, or I'm too inconsistent that I'm not actually putting in the work needed to make something happen. So there is some undermining of yourself that's happening, some self-sabotage that's happening around these areas that I just mentioned. And I think that this eclipse is bringing that about so you can bringing it up to the surface so you can work on it, release it, and then achieve this beautiful success, this 9 of Cups, this wish fulfillment that you're truly looking for. So that is what I'm seeing for you, Pisces Rising. If it resonates, please let me know by liking, commenting down below. And I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye.